What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Ticket with Tippett, the best Dynasty football channel you are going to find on all social media platforms. So make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, because today we're talking about NFL coaching hires that can change the Dynasty landscape. And we're not just talking head coach hirings, we're talking offensive coordinators as well, because sometimes they're the play callers for their team. And speaking of one of those guys, we're going to jump right into it. Mike McDaniel going to the Chargers. Probably the biggest hire outside of John Harbaugh as far as name value goes, other than I think Clint Kubiak was another big one this year, but biggest name, biggest offensive name at least. So McDaniel goes to LA and he's going to link up with Justin Herbert and he's going to try and develop Justin Herbert a lot more than Greg Roman did. And that won't be that hard to do because McDaniel is an offensive genius. We've seen this in Miami, kind of made Tua look good, even when, Tua isn't the best quarterback in the NFL. He's more of a system quarterback. And Mike McDaniel made him look like almost an MVP candidate in 2023. So who's going to benefit from the McDaniel hire? It's going to be the entire offense. Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey, Quentin Johnson. You know he loves his speed guys. So Quentin Johnson's going to get a lot of deep ball targets now, and especially Amari and Hampton. I believe McDaniel hasn't had any running back finish outside of the top 20 that have majority of the team's carries. So he's going to have, at least an RB2 at minimum in his team and in his offense. And Amari Hampton has the workload ability and the capability to be that workhorse running back for that team. And he might end up being an RB1 next season. Next name, we mentioned him here, Clint Kubiak, going to Las Vegas as the head coach. More than likely, he might be the play caller. I don't know if they announced it or not. I know he took Janeko with him from Seattle, who was, I believe, their run game coordinator. And obviously, their run game coordinator coming over, they love to run the ball. Who's that going to benefit most? One, the running back, Ashton Genty. If they can work and get this O-line worked on and add pieces to that this offseason through the draft, through free agency, whatever they can do to add pieces and just get a little more continuity on the offensive line, Genty is going to absolutely benefit from that. But not only is Genty going to benefit from it, so is that new quarterback that's going to come in with the number one overall pick, which is likely to be Fernando Mendoza. It will hopefully take some of the pressure off of his shoulders, and he has a weapon like Brock Bowers that they can use in tight end sets as well. So we saw what A.J. Barner did, and A.J. Barner wasn't even that great of a tight end before Clint Kubiak came around, and he started to show himself last year, and then this previous season, it was just gangbusters for A.J. Barner as far as production goes. So expect big things from Brock Bowers. Expect big things from Mendoza. As long as they get an offensive line, expect big things from Genty as well. Coming from the Kubiak family is a tall task. Him and his brother Clay, they were both offensive coordinators last season. Clay's in San Francisco right now as an offensive coordinator under the Shanahan tree. So let's see if the Shanahan tree and the Kubiak tree starts to grow even larger in the NFL. Next guy we'll talk about here is Mike LaFleur. Got hired as the head coach for Arizona. If you know the LaFleur name, you know that Matt LaFleur is the head coach for the Green Bay Packers. So Mike finally getting his chance, trying to live up in his older brother's shoes here. And the biggest thing for Mike is that he has divisional knowledge. He spent 3 years with the Rams, 4 years, excuse me, with the 49ers. So he knows the division pretty well, knows the opposing schemes, and will be able to benefit off of that and help his defense out a little bit as well, even though he's an offensive mind. So the big question for them, obviously, is will Kyler stay? That's the biggest question that is going to determine their dynasty success as far as their players go. If they have another year of Jacoby Brissett, it looks like their offense could still be pretty decent. But we'll see who they bring in at quarterback. That's going to be the biggest deciding factor. And we'll see if Mike LaFleur can really open up the untapped potential that Marvin Harrison Jr. has. It'll hopefully get Marvin Harrison Jr. to that top 5 draft pick potential that they used on him. So we'll see what happens there. And I think it's good things ahead for Mike LaFleur. If it's anything like Matt LaFleur, I don't think there's going to be any problems in Arizona with that offense. Next here, we're going to talk about a guy who was in Cleveland for a long time, Kevin Stefanski, going to Atlanta with the head coaching job, and he's bringing Tommy Rees right along with him from Cleveland. Tommy Rees was his offensive coordinator last season in Cleveland, so apparently he likes working with Tommy Rees, and he'll bring him right on over to Atlanta. And they love their tight end sets, and Kyle Pitts just got franchise tagged as of this week, so Stefanski's going to love his tight end sets with Kyle Pitts, and I think Kyle Pitts is going to be Probably one of the biggest benefited players as far as a head coach or offensive coordinator hiring goes, just because of how much they use tight end sets and they use two tight end sets and how much they're going to target that guy. I mean, he's going to get a ton of targets. Normally where it was like Drake London, it's probably going to be Kyle Pitts now. I think this is going to be big for Bijan Robinson because Stefanski's coached the likes of Nick Chubb and Quinshon Judkins now, who have both been pretty good, especially in their first couple years in the league. So Bijan Robinson still being pretty young, still having a little bit of tread on his tires. I think that's going to work out really well for Stefanski. And the next hire, like I said, it's probably the biggest hire of the offseason. Head coach for the New York Giants is now John Harbaugh after getting let go from Baltimore and being with Lamar Jackson all those years, coaching up Joe Flacco. So, what is his job? It's basically to accelerate the development of Jackson Dart, Cam Scatterbo, and Malik Neighbors. They're three key offensive weapons. They're going to try to give them the best chance to win right now because they showed signs of being able to win last year, just couldn't get over the hump in a couple of games. And their record ended up not really showing for how they played in a lot of those football games. So if their defense can hold up, I think that their offense is going to get a ton of chances to go ahead and go score the ball. The only thing that I don't love is that they hired Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs last year, and if you know anything about the Chiefs last year, it was one of their worst offensive seasons. Granted, they were missing a few pieces, but Matt Nagy's never been the greatest offensive mind in my book. I think he's just one of those balanced offense play callers. So you're going to see a lot of Cam Scatterbo. You're going to see a lot of run plays called for Jackson Dart, and we'll see what Malik Neighbors' health looks like when he gets back into the season. But this is all good signs of John Harbaugh coming to New York and developing these guys. So if you have him in Dynasty, you got to feel good about the down the road of these guys. One guy I wanted to touch on real quick, nothing huge, just something that I wanted to mention. Eric Bieniemy, offensive coordinator now again in Kansas City. So he was there when Mahomes was having his MVP type season. So we'll see if that reignites anything in Mahomes. Obviously, he's still a great quarterback and has been for the past couple of years while Bieniemy has been gone. But he did have his best seasons with Bieniemy there. So maybe there's a connection that kind of reignites that fire that Mahomes had and where he was the unanimous MVP and unanimous number one quarterback in the league and in Dynasty. So let's see what that does for Kansas City. And here's the probably, other than Matt Nagy as an offensive coordinator, the most unsexy hire as an offensive coordinator is Drew Petzing for Detroit. Not the sexiest hire, like I said, but this Detroit offensive scheme fits his play calling so much more than Arizona. Arizona lost James Conner, and once they lost James Conner, there was no power run game, no physical gap scheme, like Drew Petzing likes to call. So, I mean, this offense is kind of like built for a Drew Petzing offense, and I think that's why Dan Campbell made this hire because he feels like Drew Petzing can call the offense to control the game and control the time and possession and be able to, get Detroit those close wins that they were just losing those close games last year because they couldn't hold on to the ball. And yeah, they could run the ball. They had two great running backs, but it was all based off of explosive plays and trying to hit the big home run play every single time. And I think Dan Campbell knows that in order to win football games, you still got to control the ball a lot longer than your opponent for a majority of the time to win football games. So I think this is a good hire, not the sexiest hire, but I think it's going to work for Detroit and their offense. And I don't see any of their dynasty pieces like Amon Ra, Jameer Gibbs. We'll see where David Montgomery goes, but Jameer Gibbs is going to have a bigger year more than likely because there's not going to be as much competition. So we'll see what he does with this offense, and I don't see too much changing for their dynasty pieces and their assets. So next one is my Washington Commanders. They got David Blau as their offensive coordinator. He's played for guys like Ben Johnson, Kevin O'Connell. Obviously, wasn't the greatest player in the NFL, not the biggest quarterback name, but he's a familiar face in Washington, so not a terrible hire there. Jaden, I think, really likes him, and I think Jaden was a big reason why David Blau got hired. He was the quarterback coach there last year, and I think he's going to be more of a balanced scheme than Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury had a tendency to get down to the red zone and call all pass plays when we have one of the most lethal running quarterbacks in the NFL. So we could see a little bit more balanced scheme, using the run a lot more down in the red zone as well, trying to get those few extra yards, get first downs inside the red zone to get yourself an extra move of the chains and get closer to the end zone. So I think there was a lot of pass plays called late in games that we didn't really need to call when we could have run the clock out. And I think it's a good move. I think he's learned from some of the best offensive minds that there are as far as offensive scheme goes. So I'm excited to see what they do. Now, as far as Jaden Daniels goes, he's one of those like elite potential talents. So I have no worries about Jaden Daniels. Injuries obviously are the main thing, but if he recovers fully and he's healthy to start next season, hopefully Washington has a different season than the injury riddled season that they had last season. Let's see if they add a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end. You got Terry McLaurin there, so that's about the only real lethal weapon if Debo leaves. That's the only real weapon they have. So they got a lot of holes to fill, but they have a lot of free agency cap. So they can probably do something with it and give David Blau some ammunition to succeed in his first year as a play caller. Now we see Declan Doyle, the offensive coordinator now for Baltimore, was the offensive coordinator in Chicago with Ben Johnson last year, and I think this was more of not him not wanting to learn more from Ben Johnson, but wanting to call plays because obviously Ben Johnson is gonna call plays wherever he goes. He's that good of an offensive mind and that good in timing the play calling up. So I think Declan Doyle just wanted his own opportunity to call plays and prove himself that he can be a great offensive mind. And we'll see if the Ben Johnson coaching tree turns into one of these like McVay, Shanahan trees of these great offensive minded coaches that come in and they're super young and they're able to just take the league by storm. Declan Doyle's only 29 years old. I think he was the youngest hire by as far as offensive coordinator and head coaches go. So we'll see what happens there for Declan Doyle. Obviously, you go into a situation where you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback. You're going to be okay for the most part, and he's going to get you out of a lot of sticky situations. We should expect a lot more pre-snap motion compared to Todd Monken in previous years, who ran a ton, a ton of standstill plays where there was no motion. It was just shotgun formation, Lamar in the backfield, Derrick Henry next to him, and we didn't see a lot of motion. So it'll be nice to see the Ravens probably run a little bit more of that. They're not going to run it extremely at an extremely high rate, but it'll be more to where their offense will seem a little bit different, and it'll be a nice change of pace, I think, for Baltimore and Lamar. And we have two more coaches here. First, Frank Reich with the New York Jets, hired as the offensive coordinator. Aaron Glenn obviously has full trust in Frank Reich, as Frank Reich's been an NFL play caller for as long as I can remember. And he's known as kind of a quarterback whisperer, along with the next guy that we'll have on the list as the last guy. We'll see who that next quarterback is for the Jets, whether it's like a Ty Simpson or a Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik. I mean, whoever that guy is, maybe even Kyler Murray in a trade to one of these guys that isn't welcome on their team anymore or is getting drafted by this team. We'll see who that quarterback is and what Frank Reich can do for them because, like I said, he's known as that quarterback whisperer, coaching guys like Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, Matt Ryan, Philip Rivers. So he has tons of experience in coaching really good quarterbacks. Now, some of them were later in their careers and couldn't really produce at the same level that they did before, but Frank Reich still produced top 15 offenses consistently, no matter what quarterback was in his system, other than the couple years that he had in Carolina. So Tanner Angstrand, he was a very RPO and run heavy scheme for the Jets last year. I expect this to be a lot more balanced. Try to air the ball out a little bit more. You have Justin Fields as your quarterback. Obviously, you're not going to throw the ball. Tyrod Taylor too. You're not going to throw the ball a ton. It's going to be a little bit more run heavy. So let's expect this to be a more balanced scheme, depending on what quarterback comes in through that draft or free agency or by trade. This new quarterback will ultimately decide how far dynasty players go for the New York Jets. If it's a guy like Garrett Nussmeier, we're probably not going to expect a whole lot from guys like Garrett Wilson, John Mechie, Adonai Mitchell that they added last season. So, and then obviously Brees Hall, the conversation that just came out that Brees Hall might end up getting franchise tag back to the New York Jets. And we don't know if that's just for the Jets to make a future move and get another piece in the draft or what it's for. I mean, Brees Hall has made it pretty clear that he's done in New York, I think, and so we'll see what that move is all about, and we'll see if they actually go through with it and actually franchise tag him before the deadline hits on the franchise tags, and that will be a huge part because if Brees Hall ends up somewhere like New York instead of a place like Kansas City or maybe a Minnesota to make that offense a little bit better for JJ McCarthy, like there's going to be uh he might not play. I'll just put it that way. And it's going to be tough for Brees Hall dynasty owners in this initial year where he is a free agent, possibly. So we'll see what happens there. And my last one, and probably one of my most favorite hires of this offseason, is Brian Dable as the offensive coordinator for Tennessee. I wanted to leave this one last because I wanted to talk about his job as an offensive coordinator is to develop Cam Ward, and that is probably the only goal that Robert Saleh tasked him with when he hired him as the offensive coordinator. And if you know anything about Brian Dable, he's kind of a quarterback whisperer himself as well. Ever since he came into the league, he worked with Josh Allen as his offensive coordinator, and that's obviously what got him the job in New York. Then he went out of his way to go draft Jackson Dart in the first round, which seems like it's going to pay off pretty well for the New York Giants. And it was something that the GM Joe Schoen didn't want to do at the time, and Dable really vouched for Jackson Dart to be the next pick of the New York Giants in that first round. And now he looks like a genius, and somehow he's the one out. Obviously, didn't have great seasons with New York, but I'm gonna be honest. I'm a Washington fan. He didn't have the teams to go ahead and dominate the NFC East like they thought he should have. So I think it's going to be good things to come in Tennessee for Cam Ward. They're going to run a lot more RPO, which is Cam Ward's play style, as opposed to that West Coast air raid system that Tennessee ran last year, where they just tried to throw the ball every chance they could. And granted, they didn't have a good run game, but if they had a good running back here in free agency, who knows what that run game could turn into. Add a couple more offensive line pieces, just like we talked about with the Las Vegas Raiders, add a running back, and now you have the chance to run a little bit more RPO and a heavier run game to help Cam Ward get back to that style that he ran in college and the play that we saw out of Miami. So let's see what Cam Ward can do with Brian Daboll. I'm super excited about Cam Ward, and I think you should go buy him if people think that Brian Daboll isn't the answer, because I think that he probably is the answer. When he gets to focus on just the offense and not being a full-time head coach, he's pretty damn good at what he does. All right, so that's going through pretty much every significant offensive coordinator and head coach hiring in the offseason of 2026 and what that means for Dynasty and team and their outlook for the 2026 season. So obviously, we'll see what happens in the draft. Combine is literally tomorrow. So it's been the interviews and stuff have been going on all week, but the actual testing goes on tomorrow. We're recording this on Wednesday, February 25th. So excited to sit down and watch all the combine and watch all these young guys get out there and just kind of show all those GMs like, what they're worth. And obviously the draft is in April, so we'll be covering everything leading up to the draft, and we're back full time now. Kind of took a break there, but we're back and we're rocking and rolling here with Ticket with Tippett. If you like the video, go ahead and drop a like, subscribe, and comment below who your favorite hire was and who do you think benefits the most from a specific hire in this NFL hiring calendar year. So let's see what you guys think, and I appreciate the love and support. And we'll see you guys next time with the next video.